Well, hello everyone. We are in season 2, episode 86 with misheard song lyrics. I'm misheard with misheard songs, and we're going to be doing our first ever Michael Bolton misheard song lyric. The misheard song lyric is, "When a man loves a walnut," and the correct lyrics is, "When a man loves a woman." Fun fact. Funny thing about When a Man Loves a Walnut, there's actually a paperback that was created back on November 5th in 1997 from author Gavin Edwards. It was the third illustrated installment of his hit series of often misunderstood lyrics, including songs from, this classic rock artists like the Beatles, Bruce Springsteen, as well as some alternative bands like Pearl Jam, Nine Inch Nails, we just talked about Nin and others, and Green Day. And originally, when it came out, amazingly, it sold about 125,000 books in its first printing. Remember that name, though? Author Gavin Edwards. Does it sound familiar for you longtime listeners? I interviewed author Gavin Williams all the way back on my episode 6, season 1, on October 9th, back in 2019, and he was a delight. We talked about why he wrote the misunderstood song books. We learned about everything about misheard songs. And we learned that he was also at that time finishing a book about Mr. Rogers. So that was a delight. All right, so I digress. Let's talk about the song, who actually is the original singer who wrote it, because actually Michael Bolton is not the original singer. Shocking. And about his version. So about the song, When a Man Loves a Woman, not a walnut, was written by a Calvin Lewis and Edward Wright and first recorded by singer Percy Sledge all the way back in 1966 at a studio in Sheffield, Alabama called Norola Sound Studio. It made number 1 on both the Billboard Hot 100 and R&B singles charts. And I guess it's been covered not only by Michael Bolton, but others. I guess Bette Midler did it. She recorded the song 14 years later and had a top 40 hit with her version in the 1980s. That I did not know. All I knew was the Michael Bolton and the Percy Sledge version. And then, of course, in 1991, Michael Bolton recorded the song, and his version peaked at number 1 on both the Billboard Hot 100 chart and the Billboard Adult Contemporary Singles chart, double. All right, let's talk about the original Percy Sledge version. So according to a Dan Penn, this song was initially recorded by Percy Sledge at Rick Hall's Fame, F-A-M-E, it's an acronym, studios at Muscle Shoals, before it was re-recorded at the nearby Norola Studios, located at 603 East Avalon Avenue at the nearby Norola Studios owned by a Quinn Ivy. So FAME, which I said is an acronym, stands for Florence, Alabama Music Enterprises Studio, recording studio, very famous studio. And like I said, it's located at 603 East Avalon Avenue in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. So that's about northern Alabama, known as the Shoals. I'm not from there, so those that know it know what I'm talking about. And though small and distant, they say on the internet, from the main recording locations of the American music industry, FAME has produced many hit records and was instrumental in what became known as the Muscle Shoals sound. And it was started back in the 1950s by Rick Hall, who is known as the founder of Muscle Shoals Music. And the studio was owned by Hall until his death in 2018 and is actually still operating. It was added to the Alabama Register of Landmarks and Heritage back on December 15th, 1997, and was listed on the National Registry of Historic Places as it should be in 2016. And if Muscle Shoals sounds familiar, because when I saw that it sounded very familiar, there was actually an award-winning documentary back in 2013 called Muscle Shoals, which featured Rick Hall, the founder, and the Muscle Shoals rhythm section, also known as the Swampers. I love it. And the Muscle Shoals sound originally popularized by FAME, or as we know it, Florence, Alabama Music Enterprises. And then according to Quinn Ivy, who owned the nearby Norola Studios, Percy Sledge, the original singer of the song, was introduced by him by his friend Leroy Wright in Ivy's Tune Esquires. The sideman for the recording, including Spooner Oldham, Farfisa organ, Marlon Green, and apparently it did not play on the record. Rick Hall arranged a distribution deal with Atlantic Records, but Jerry Wexler asked that their song be re-recorded because the horns were out of tune. Interesting. And according to musician David Hood, quote unquote, they went back in the studio and changed the horns, got different players to play on it, but then the tapes got mixed up and Atlantic put on the original version. So that's the hit. So isn't that funny how it got mixed up and it was the hit anyway? Okay, so how did it do originally? So it was released by Atlantic Records back in April of 1966. Wow. So this year, 55 years ago? Sledge's recording reached number one on both the Billboard Hot 100 and R&B, okay? Becoming the first one hit recorded in Muscle Shoals, or number one hit recorded in Muscle Shoals. It's also one of 7 number one hits to debut on the Billboard Hot 100 at number 100. The song was also a top 10 hit in the UK, reaching the number 4 on its initial release and ultimately peaking at number 2 in 1987 on the UK singles chart after it was featured, get this, in a Levi's jeans commercial. The Percy Sledge version is listed 53rd in Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Songs of All Time. And another did you know, also in 1987, it was reissued in the US to promote the soundtrack album for then Oliver Stone's movie Platoon with the young Charlie Sheen and others. So who wrote it? Okay. Well, Calvin Lewis and Andrew Wright were the members of what they called the band the Esquires that was in Sheffield, Alabama, fronted by singer Percy Sledge. And according to Wright, quote, unquote, we were set to play at a Friday night dance and we were practicing. I was messing around the organ when this riff came up out of nowhere. There was no one in the club but us. I told Calvin to go home and write some words, quote unquote. The next night, they rehearsed the emerging song with Sledge, changed it around, and soon afterwards auditioned the song for local businessman and radio DJ Quinn Ivey, that owns Neurala Studios. He liked the song, but suggested that some of the words need to be changed to give a more positive message. Wright said, we kept some of the phrases, worked on it for several weeks, and spent quite a bit of time in the studio, quote unquote. Now, though the writing of the song is credited to Lewis and Wright, Sledge has later said that he should have received a co-writing credit, and here's why. In one of the stories I found on the internet, Sledge said that one night he was upset over a broken relationship and asked Lewis and Wright to play a slow blues over which he improvised the lyrics describing his emotions. This is what Percy said. Quinn Ivey was at the show and asked the band to refine the lyrics so it could be recorded. Sledge said he allowed Lewis and Wright to take the writing credits because they gave him the opportunity to, quote, sing his heart out, unquote. In another interview, Sledge said, when I wrote the song at first, it was called Why Did You Leave Me, Baby? And I changed it from that to When a Man Loves a Woman. I just reversed it. Quinn told me that if I was to write some lyrics around the melody and the expression I'd put into Why Did You Leave Me, Baby, he believed would be a hit record. He was one of the top disc jockeys at the time. Sure enough, or DJ, he asked me if I had any lyrics for that. He said, that's it. Write a story around the title. What a song that would be with that feeling you had. It was a song that was meant to be. It wasn't just what I had done. It was the musicians, the producer, the background singers at the right time. So the recipe was perfect. So how did we get to the Michael Bolton cover? Well, it was recorded by singer Michael Bolton in 1991 for his album Time, Love, and Tenderness. And again, his version did quite well. It reached number 1 in the U.S. pop and adult contemporary singles chart. Bolton also received a Grammy Award for the song. This version had the distinction of being the last number 1 song to chart on the old Billboard Hot 100 charting system. That's something I didn't know, which relied on sales and airplay before switching over to SoundScan. Also, with the Percy Sledge original having reached number 1 previously, Bolton's version made it to the 7th song in the history to top the Hot 100 as recorded by multiple artists. So you're taking the same song, re-recorded, covered, and still doing well. Or for some of you, who is this Michael Bolton? And I have to tell some youngins who don't know him, when you look him up on Google, he's this white dude with kind of scraggly long hair, but some women liked it. So he was actually born Michael Bolotin, Bolotin, and must have changed it to Michael Bolton. And he was actually born back on February 26, 1953. And he is an American singer and songwriter. He's also known from how I know him with his, again, long locks and former girlfriend, Nicolette Sheridan. It's a show that came out in like late 90s, early 2000 that she was a part of. And again, story goes, Bolton was introduced to actress Nicolette Sheridan in 1992 by adult contemporary jazz saxophonist Kenny G. Boy, the 90s are just coming back to me. And Kenny G is I said, famous saxophonist, also with long hair, okay? And I didn't realize he introduced the two. Bolton originally performed in the hard rock and heavy metal genres. Had no idea. From the mid-1970s to the mid-1980s, both on his early solo albums and those he recorded as the frontman of the band Blackjack. So look him up. I found him, and yeah, there he is. Who knew? He became better known for his series of pop rock ballads, recording after a stylistic change in the late 80s. So it did him well. And then it shows here Bolton's achievements, including selling more than 75 million records, recording 8 top 10 albums and 2 #1 singles on the Billboard charts, as well as winning 6 American Music Awards and 2 Grammys. Not so bad, Michael Bolton or Bulletin. So again, when a man loves a walnut, not about a nut, it's about a woman. And great to connect with this one again, because it connected with author Gavin Edwards, who again wrote the book, Misheard book, also at the same title, and it did quite well. So hopefully you learned something today. If you have any suggestions for any future Misheard song lyrics episodes, please send them to us. We're in every different type of social media. You can find us at Misheard Songs, and you can also email us at misheard, MISSHEARD songs@gmail.com. And who knows, you could be our next episode. Keep singing those songs wrong, bye.